Every movie collector has titles in their collection that they've never watched. Us too. It's time to change that. This is Never Have I Ever. What's up, Chumbags? Welcome to the HQ. My name's Sri.
And my name's Alexa, and welcome to the very first episode of Never Have I Ever. You know, never have I ever done one of these episodes before.
Wow, that's me neither.
Wow. Well, today's episode, we are going to be talking about the November Man.
That's right. See, I know a lot of people really like Daniel Craig as James Bond, and after seeing No Time to Die, I will admit I'm also a fan. But for me, I grew up watching Pierce Brosnan as James Bond from, GoldenEye, No Time to Die, Die Another Day. And so, not No Time to Die.
Yeah.
I repeated No Time to Die. Die Another Day.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I got to think of another one now. I'm on this hot spot, but it's all right. I'll edit it in right now. I'll just say
Tomorrow Never Dies.
There we go.
Perfect. Nailed that. Wow.
Thank you.
Great job knowing three of those.
I'm a really big fan of Pierce Brosnan. And so as I was walking through the electronics section of the dollar store, and I looked at the bottom shelf and saw a little Blu-ray for a movie called The November Man, starring Pierce Brosnan, with a subtitle that says, "A spy is never out of the game." You know I had to buy it. And so I took it home. I tucked it in on my shelf right next to No Time
to Die. It keeps coming in. This movie's haunting you.
I can't forget No Time to Die.
It was a great movie. Great movie.
Next to No Country for Old Men. Though if I did own No Time to Die, it would
have gone right next to it.
Go right next to it, honestly. Yeah, I was sitting right next to No Country for Old Men until we spun the wheel and The November Man was selected. So here we are, right? A movie that have you heard of this movie before?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Only from looking at your shelf of movies.
Only seeing the red bar on the side.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Saying, there's Pierce Brosnan movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're going to talk all about The November Man today. But for those of you who are new to this, because this is the first episode, we're not going to talk about spoilers until the first ad break. So sit back, relax. Here are our general thoughts on The November Man, and then go watch it for yourself, come back, and then you can kind of get a little bit more engaged in the conversation. And let me just tell you this. Alexa has one thing she's been dying to talk about, and she will not talk about it until the spoiler break has been lifted. So you got to stick around for at least that. Mm-hmm. Now, with that said, there's no better way to start off the talking about a movie than, I think, reading the back. So, Alexa, would you do me the honor? I want to close my eyes. I want you to narrate this trailer for me.
Okay. Are you ready? Pierce Brosnan stars in this action-packed spy thriller set in the ruthless world of international espionage. Codenamed The November Man, Peter Devereaux, Brosnan, is a lethal and highly trained ex-CIA agent who has been living in Switzerland. When Devereaux is lured out of retirement to safeguard a beautiful witness targeted for assassin, he's drawn into a deadly game of cat and mouse with his former friend and protege, David Mason. With no one to trust, Peter must survive Mason's relentless assault and root out a suspected CIA mole who may pose the greatest threat of all. Is that beautiful? Did you feel like you were back
beautiful.
Watching the movie?
I thought I was watching the trailer for a second, actually. But what isn't here is that actually the movie starts in 2008.
Yes.
And it's a flashback to a time when Devereaux and Mason are actually working together, and
when he's his protege.
And essentially, Brosnan is, or I'll use the character name Devereaux. He's assuming the character or the look of an ambassador, so that they can draw out an assassin because there's a threat on the spot, and I guess the assassin didn't fully look at the photo of what the target's supposed to look like, and so he's like, "Oh, that's the target," and so he takes a shot.
Just random older looking white man. That's it. That's all you need.
So he takes a shot, and during this little exchange, there's a civilian who gets hit, a little kid, and you see the shot of this grieving mother. There's a shaky cam shot of Pierce Brosnan, like looking around, after the aftermath, and then we cut to title card, The November Man. Something that you don't find out what it means until probably like the 4/5 of the way into the movie, the third act.
Or
really.
If you watch the trailer.
Or if you watch the trailer,
it's
yeah.
also in there, despite being at the, like, almost the very end of the film.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
in the final sequences.
Yeah, it got to a point where I was like, I wonder if I missed what the November Man meant.
I was also having those thoughts.
And then eventually there's a character says, so you want to know why...
What we called you behind your back?
Yeah. So he's not, by the way, codenamed the November Man. He was just kind of like a name they've used, like, hey, you want to know what we called you? A booger face? That's what we called you back in the day. But I digress.
Yeah.
This is interesting because essentially this is a movie that's based on a book series.
Yes.
This particular book is called There Are No Spies, and it's the 7th book in a 13-book series.
Yes.
And so it's interesting choice to jump in. It feels very Percy Jackson-esque of, going into a movie series and adapting it and like borrowing from like something in the middle of the...
they did say that in the behind the scenes on the Blu-ray, one of the perks of physical is that it did talk about they drew from all 13 books.
Yeah,
they're very clear about, but the main inspiration, like most of what they drew, was from that 7th one, but they drew ideas from all of the books.
Right.
And I think you can feel that.
For sure. And I think, well, we're doing a lot of thinking here. We might want to slow it down. But the movie has a lot of plot lines.
Yes.
And I think that maybe at times it doesn't fully juggle all of them together. Yeah. I think even the synopsis here, like...
It misses some key stuff. Like,
it misses some key stuff. And to the movie's credit, there is like, is some deception going on in this back of this box because, he's not actually there because of this beautiful witness. He's
it's
there...
not why he's pulled out. That's what he ends up doing. But the reason he's pulled out
is for
initially
something else. Yeah, which again we're not going to talk about with the spoilers. No spoilers yet.
No.
But what I think is interesting is like they say he's a lethal and highly trained CIA agent who has been living in ex-CIA agent who has been living in Switzerland. Like what
I honestly did not know he had been living in Switzerland until we read the back of that. I'm sure it was definitely mentioned, but like it was such an insignificant detail in the movie
that's fair.
that I forgot that.
Yeah, it's right at the start, and
it is.
The movie does have what I think is very interesting. I can't say if it's for all of, it's a typical action movie, so there's like, we travel around the world, and there's like subtitles that say like, no, not subtitles, but title cards that say that we are here,
and most of the movie is in Serbia, a lot of it.
Right. Yes.
That's
which
where they spend most of their
we'll
time.
also talk about that a little bit as well. So I can't say if it's for all of the title cards, but quite a few of them have this like PowerPoint animation style, like whoosh into the screen, which I really appreciated. There's nothing better to set the stage for like, oh, we're in Switzerland than like a little whoosh coming in to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My main thing about the overall story is that it felt rushed while feeling long, because the movie, as I was saying, is 1 hour 48 minutes, I believe, and it definitely felt longer than that. I definitely have in my notes a little star that says feels long. I wrote at one point, I think it was maybe 2/3 of the way into the movie. There was still a good amount of movie left after I wrote that down in my notes, so it definitely felt long.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is due to the amount of storylines happening, because there's a lot of plot points, a lot of stuff, and it feels like, despite feeling long, it also feels like stuff is missing. Like, characters will go from one point in their relationship to all of a sudden this other point in their relationship that doesn't... It feels like a jump. It doesn't feel like it's justified, that change in how they feel about each other. There's been nothing shown or told to us to make us understand why they are in this new place.
Sure.
And that happens in varying degrees throughout the movie. And I'll, talk a little bit more when we can talk spoilers. But I think that was one of my biggest thoughts throughout the movie, was just that the plot lines happening, like, I was just like, what is going on? Like, a few times, because there's just so many things.
For the conversation
and they didn't all meld.
To continue forward, I think you should give some examples. But of course, before we get into that, let's hear a word from our sponsor. All right, now we can get into spoilers.
Spoilers.
And you've been very cleverly dancing around certain things, Alexa. Clearly things that are frustrating you. So now you can talk about it. Give examples.
Okay, examples away.
What it is.
I am ready to
you.
quote this movie. So there's a couple times throughout where mainly, so I'm just going to talk about the main part of it because, we're not going to talk too long. So Pierce Brosnan's character of Peter Devereaux, a.k.a. the November Man, is a complex character.
Yeah. And you know what? Well, we should set the stage here.
Mm-hmm.
The November Man. The reason why they call him the November Man is because he kills everything pretty much.
Well, I can quote it for you. I wrote it down.
Okay, I'll get the actual quote.
So he says, "You don't know what we called you behind your back? The November Man. Once you passed through, nothing lived."
Yeah, I just said he killed everything, but
I wrote once you passed through, nothing lived, and then the rest of it is paraphrased.
Sure, yeah,
but yes.
Which is an interesting way to
speak of a character at the end of a movie, which I mean was shown. I will say a lot of death in this movie. Yeah. A lot of unnecessary death in this movie.
Perhaps too much, yeah.
A lot of people, you're like, well, isn't that just a CIA agent who's doing his job, and the main guy who's the issue is who you're trying to get to? So why not just show him the video you have?
Ruthlessly plow through some of these bad guys.
Then they're not bad guys.
That are just like,
They're just like people doing their job who don't know the information that our main characters know.
And I think, it's an equal point of like, from either perspective, our main character is also a bad guy.
Oh,
I think,
for sure.
Depending on how you look at it. So.
And I think that is exemplified a few times. They try and... So I'll get into my thoughts on the main character really fast.
Yeah,
so
now you can go.
There are quite a few moments where his character feels hypocritical.
Sure.
His character feels like he has, really swings between what his motives are. And... there's a few key moments that I'll bring up that I think really showcase it. So like whenever he first meets our beautiful witness, who's played by Olga Kurilenko, I hope I'm saying that right.
Yep.
He tells her, if you want to live, you're gonna have to trust me. I'm paraphrasing. I don't have the exact word for words. And then
when he wrestles, you gotta listen to me.
Yeah, he's shoving her against the wall and saying, you gotta trust me if you want to live. Like literally shoving her against the wall. And then it cuts to him having this long dialogue with David Mason, his friend, and we'll get into that quotes in a minute, and he's like kind of sounds insane in this dialogue.
Yeah, because he's like, the idea is like he's supposed to be verbally taunting this person.
Exactly. And
so but when you remove when you remove the logic of like, okay, I can hear
the other side,
you're the audience and you know the situation, and then you also know like the other side. When you remove that and you put yourself in her shoes,
you're just this woman who just met him, and he shoved her against the wall, said trust me, and then I'd be like, I'm kind of get away, man. And then again later on in the movie, they have a separate dialogue. Wait, let me say this dialogue fast. Go ahead. This dialogue where he says, "Don't put your faith in me. I'll disappoint you." To the same character who he said, if you want to live, you're going to have to trust me. Like, this is a direct dialogue later in the movie. And this is all like in a short time frame that this is happening. How action movies often are is, it's very fast paced, like happening right after another. And so it's like, bro, like you're sending mixed signals. Like you're getting really mixed signals. It's like and blatantly stating it.
It's like kidnapping someone. It's like, listen to me. I'm the only one who can save you. And then it's like, all right, now watch me prank call Pizza Hut. It's like
literally.
Can I have 50 medium pizzas?
And then another thing that I found that was also felt just contradictory is he states point blank that David Mason, the character played by Luke. What's his last name? Bassey. Luke Bassey. Bracey. Luke Bracey. He does a great job. But all the acting is fine. Like, it's just the story. But so at one point, Devereaux says that David Mason is probably his best friend.
Yeah.
Every single interaction we have seen between these two people have been them butting heads or like dropping them from their team or like, doing something wrong, not listening. Like, it's been only negative interactions between these two people. And for him to come out and say he's probably my best friend was just such a wild statement. I'm like there's been absolutely nothing shown or told. It makes the ending.
Though, I think Alexa, that's a, not to
pull
this card so fast. I think it's a man thing because he has no other friends So he's like, "Who's the one? Who do I know? Who can I name?"
You want to
right
talk
now?
about a man thing? I got more to say on that.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about let's wait
I'd
for
like
the
to
second.
hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, let's wait for the second ad break for that.
One other inconsistency that's
Yep.
really important is the scene that should have been cut.
Okay.
And so his character, so the opening scene, as you said, was this young boy dying, and that kind of has Devereaux is like this guy, because it's David Mason's fault that the kid died. He's saying don't shoot, and he did anyways for reasons that are understandable why he did. But you can see Devereaux was not happy that he did that and killed this kid, innocent child. Later on, Devereaux then breaks into David Mason's apartment and nearly kills the woman who he was sleeping with. Who is just this innocent woman who is just his neighbor. Like, she's just totally innocent woman, and it varies juxtaposition
earlier, because when we weren't talking about spoilers, you said how the characters' relationships kind of speed up really
fast. It's part
fast.
of that. It's also, but I was actually mainly talking about him and Olga's character's relationship, Mira. I was talking about theirs, which I discussed a little. Like, it just jumps from "you gotta trust me" shoved against the wall to "we're besties," and she trusts him with his life. Like,
she's
there's
ecstatic that he shows up.
He's literally ecstatic that he shows up at the end and is like my savior, and it's like he's like been very problematic in front of you this whole time. But please, so there are positives. Let's talk about those briefly. I had to say that scene really shouldn't have been in the movie. It totally, for me, ruined his character.
Right.
Because it went from this guy who definitely not a good guy, but he had a line of innocence. He always protected the innocence, even if it was in the way of the mission, is what the intro set up. And then this completely threw that out the window.
Well, I think first of all, I think that November Man, or Devereaux, is a totally unhinged person. Like,
absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
Continue, and I have this as a specific note because I don't know if it's like it's a character thing in the book and like they try and translate it or whatever. Dude is a flat out alcoholic. Like,
oh, absolutely,
just constantly drinking. It's not like Bond where he's like, have a martini.
No,
it's like the hotel bar.
Walks in, immediately grabs 3 bottles of alcohol.
Just starts pouring himself. He definitely is erratic. And so he has like these outbursts that feel very kind of
I feel like if there was more context, like there'd been previous films and like character development, this could have been okay. But because they chose to start in the middle with it, I think that definitely lended to some of the lack of consistency and lack of understanding for like characters' motivations.
Yeah, and I think it sets up a whole bunch of interesting ideas, but I don't know if we necessarily see the kind of ramification or maybe see those ideas fleshed out, because there is, by the end of the movie, you get an idea that there's a lot of ideas that November Man or Devereaux and Mason are on the same page. That they things do work out for them in the end. But at the same
needed
time,
more building of their character.
The only context for that is that the scene at the start, which is Mason shooting Devereaux and not listening to orders.
No, Mason shooting the assassin.
Sorry, Mason. Sorry, yes, I apologize.
Mason shooting the assassin.
Shooting the assassin,
killing the young boy,
breaking the protocol that or the
Devereaux
the
had
rules.
said do not shoot.
Right.
So he does not following orders.
Sorry, I didn't mean it. Yeah.
Yep.
And shooting and killing his best friend is how the movie starts. No. And I think that's the only real point where you see that happening, and because you don't really get an idea of why Mason even kind of flips sides. Yeah. Why he's kind of like other than the fact that you were
there's
his
just
protege.
not enough.
And so I think it needed kind of to be more fleshed out to fully get to.
Yeah, I think they tried to fit a lot
the characters
into a short amount of time, and it just made it so some things were lacking.
The one point in my notes that really sums up my thoughts on the movie as a whole is that it feels like it's just kind of going through the motions. So there's not a lot of emotion. It's just a lot of motion. You're getting through the plot. You're getting through, from point A to point B. And it has some of the checkbox items that you expect in a, international spy movie. It has, lush backgrounds or some very blue area, like blue tinted areas that are flashbacks. Like all the things that you expect to be in here, there are. It's just that I don't think it's backed up by enough kind of supporting material, whether that be characters or character motivations or writing, whatever you want to put it to make it feel like really fulfilling, you know?
I agree.
But before we get into the last big section of this episode, it's time to hear a word from our sponsor. Okay.
Now I need to update guns though. Oh shit, see? Noise. Good shit. Alright, hey, I'm here. Oh god! Now, I know we just said quite a few negatives before that ad break. We did sprinkle in some positive, but I want to just give one blanket positive with no caveats for it, and that is there were some cool drone shots in the movie. I think they utilized the drone well.
Yeah.
It was, back at the start of kind of utilizing drones in films. It wasn't as popular as it is today. It definitely was happening at that time.
2014, so it was 11 years ago.
Yeah. So it was like, I feel like that was around when drones were like starting to become more popular in movie, the use for different shots. And there's some really cool shots you can get with drones that you can't get without them. And I think they did a good job utilizing that and mixing it in.
Mm-hmm. There's also some pretty cool, and to quote my notes, spy shit. And I think it's ultimately like things that are pretty small overall that add a lot of kind of, like these are people from a different place. They know they have a different skill set,
Yes.
I think the one shot that comes to mind is Hanley, I think is his name. He takes out his gun when his house is being broken into, and the first thing he does isn't to, turn around and shoot the people entering his house. He shoots his own piece, like computer, to kind of like ruin any, like nothing can be reconstructed or whatever.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and then there's another one where a character is trying to, spoilers are done. Near the end of the movie when Mason's like, actually doing a good thing, his strategy is essentially to drive a car full speed into a wall. And he's buckled in so that he's got seatbelt and the airbag. For the other person, so that he can't put on his seatbelt, he just shoves a quarter into the seatbelt thing, and then the guys are trying to click it in, but he can't because the quarter's in there. It's small stuff like that. There's also these people that Devereaux like traps in like saran wrap, and then he puts like straws so that they can breathe. Like that's brutal.
That's cool. Yeah, it is very good at the brutal as well, and that's something that I think they wanted to be good at. As like, we're going to talk a little bit about the Blu-ray extras briefly.
Yeah, which this Blu-ray comes with the making of November Man, bringing Belgrand to the big screen. Brosnan is back, and includes director's commentary. Along with Pierce Brosnan and producer Bo St. Clair.
Yes, so we watched the making of content that they had, and that's what we learned about how they drew from the books that we talked about earlier, and that's also, they talked a lot about the drone shots, which is really cool. Yeah. And they also talked about, but Pierce Brosnan, obviously, as Sri said, was James Bond, and so to return to a spy movie, he needed something different,
right? And
the thing that he wanted was it to be gritty and real, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily the realist, but it's definitely gritty. They have, the deaths are brutal, the violence is well choreographed, even if the editing's a little faster than I prefer for it. I've talked about a lot on this channel actually in the past, but the fight choreography is well done, the use of guns, and I think the way that they do it, the blood is very good,
and like some of the stylized stuff is also interesting. And at the end again, when Mason's like has his epiphany, he's a good guy now, and he's saving Devereaux's daughter. He like Max Payne dives into the room to get the shots, and it's kind of cool.
Sick. Yeah.
And we will talk about a little bit about the kind of the way they shot this this movie, because I think you've been kind of hinting at it, because I think shooting it and editing it kind of go hand in hand together.
Yes.
There's some really. First of all, a lot of this movie feels like it's long lenses and handheld, and the result is like a frame that's constantly moving. Even if like very few shots are locked down, but that does also make certain, like there's one shot that they used twice actually, which is like a car's hood as it's like driving past the road. And it's one of the few times like the shot's like locked down, and so you really notice they're like. This is like not the same as everything else. And even in the handheld shots, I actually do I like handheld shots, and I think it's interesting kind of the way that the scene kind of moves. There's certain shots that I think are really well kind of framed and organized.
They had some really cool shots.
But that being said, when you pair that with the editing, it kind of pulls the rug out a little bit in a underwhelming way. because I think every time the movie's trying to cut to a bit different beat, it feels like it's just starting at a random beat. Like the title, the cut to title is one.
And even during a scene itself, like there was at one point when I was fully processing how fast the editing was, there was a dialogue scene happening. And so I started just counting, and I never made it past 7. For how long it held. And it would be the same shots. Like it would be, shot, reverse, shot. And there'd be one person talking, and it would cut 3 or 4 times between them, all during this one person's not that long amount of dialogue. And so it makes it so they have these good shots. The acting was also quite good throughout, and they just aren't utilizing that because the editing is taking away from those things and making it so you can't fully appreciate them. And that's my main negative with fast-paced editing, is to feel like it doesn't give you time to appreciate the frame, appreciate the acting, and appreciate the moment, because you're just like boom, 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 boom. Sure. And just so that's kind of my overall thoughts on that.
Yeah. Well, the last thing I'll say, as I think maybe to put an infinity sign at the end of this this particular conversation before I dive into some of the
a little fun final bit.
Yeah, a fun final bit is that I felt like, and we'll both have one final thing to say about it. For me, I think it was almost felt like a Pierce Brosnan version of a Rajinikanth movie, where it's like he's doing minimal actual work here.
That's a good.
It's a lot of he just shows up. He does he's rocks one elbow. The guy's gone, and things work out for him in the end without having to do too much.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of time. The movie also spends quite a bit of time away from Devereaux's character.
Agreed.
And I think that's conscious choice to kind of push the plot forward, and then we're like, all right, now we got to get the star back on the movie screen. Give him some screen time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my final point I want to make is that every woman in this was dumb and or incompetent.
Sure.
That is something I would like to point out quick.
I will say
there was a spy character who, as you said, there was some cool spy shit in this from the men, and then there's one female spy that we spend time with for a bit, and she
gets
just
by a
did
shovel.
the dumb. No, not the assassin. I'm talking about the opening.
Oh, sure.
When she just does dumb stuff and gets caught because she did absolutely so many dumb choices.
For
I
as
won't
many
go into detail
cool
because I don't want to
spy
spend too much
shit
time.
as the dudes are up to. Yeah,
there's an incompetent woman trying just not doing a good job.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice, and again, a certain degree of that.
It's a very macho man movie. It's also
a certain
part
degree
of it
that
throughout.
I don't know if it's necessarily the movie entirely itself, or if it's the books, or some sort of they were trying to adapt it, and so it didn't. You lose that in context. I'm not sure, but yeah, I do have it in my notes that women are put in very unfortunate situations quite frequently.
They aren't handling it well.
Yeah,
none of them.
It doesn't often end well.
Yeah, no, but there's one or two times that someone does a good thing, but overall, women are not portrayed the best in this film. But I think the movie in itself, I think you've said it very well. It is an action movie. There's some fun action sequences. There's some cool spy shit.
Yeah.
But the plot line and the character development is my key thing is just lacking a bit to make it have that fulfilling feeling whenever you finish the movie.
Yeah. I mean, was it worth $1?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we wrap up our very first episode of Never Have I Ever, we have one final segment that we are calling Special Features.
We have a little bit of trivia. We're going to put Alexa in the hot seat and see if she can answer some interesting trivia facts about the November Man. And, of course, you can play along yourself and let us know down in the comments how you do. So, Alexa, as you had said earlier, this is based on a book series, in fact. This particular book that we're talking about, There Are No Spies, that the November Man movie is based off of, was originally set where? Take a guess.
Serbia.
That is incorrect. This movie is set in Belgrade, Serbia, but the book is set in Germany.
Oh.
In Berlin, to be specific.
Oh.
But that was too expensive, so they moved production to Belgrade, Serbia, who actually in the making of, they really emphasize how great Belgrade was to film and how supportive they were.
They talked about that.
So yeah, there's a fun fact for you. Next up,
the cat. HR is coming in.
Yeah, make sure production's going okay.
Hi, bud.
All right, now we have HR coming in to make sure
I got
the
now a helper
production.
for the trivia.
All right, production's going okay.
He's gonna help me answer some questions.
I'm sure this can only go well.
All right.
Speaking of the budget, Alexa.
Yeah.
This movie was filmed on a budget
so bad
of
at guessing budgets.
$15 million.
Cool.
What was its worldwide gross?
So it was made for 15
Made
million.
for $15 million.
And I think it made 35 million.
Holy shit! Did
No,
you?
I know nothing. That was just the number that makes sense in my head.
$34.8 million worldwide.
You're kidding me. I literally.
Wow.
I just feel like that's how much this would have made.
Wow, that's crazy.
Wow, pat on the back to me. I was expecting you to be like, you're totally wrong.
No, yeah, that's crazy. Well, all right, the last one. Since you're so good,
but now I'm a Bond villain.
Yeah, I know, right?
Maybe
that's
exit,
what it is.
I'm like,
well, the last question.
$1 million.
Olga Kurylenko plays a woman seeking revenge for her family's death in The November Man.
Yes.
And what other movie?
I don't think I've ever seen another movie with her. I'm gonna give this one to him.
That is correct. Quantum of Solace.
Of course.
The James Bond movie.
Of course. Oh, wait, really? Who's
yes.
the James Bond in
Daniel Craig.
That one's Daniel Craig.
Yes.
Okay.
So, Quantum of Solace, I believe the movie that was shot during or filmed during shot and filmed are the same thing. During the writer's strike, I believe.
Oh, interesting.
A notable.
Oh, the back in the day. Yeah, the previous one. I was like, wait, no, that's an older movie. There's been another. But
yes.
Yes, the previous one. Mm-hmm.
But what that
Wait, I have actually a trivia question that I have from the movie that I wrote down during the film.
Oh, okay.
And I've been saving. All right, so are you ready for this?
For it.
So early on in the movie, the redhead character whose name I've forgotten, Natalia, I think, goes into a safe and types in a number. What was that number?
12308.
That's correct. That's
there
correct.
it is. I remembered the button pattern that she
pressed.
It
was a very distinct pattern.
Yeah.
It really was.
Well,
but
there you have it.
Good job.
Hopefully you answered all of those questions correctly.
I'm sure you did.
And if you're new around here, of course, consider subscribing. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Let us know what you thought about the November Man. I can't speak. And as always, people, until next time, have a good night,
a good morning,
and a damn good time.
Bye.